Hey y'all, and welcome back to the second part of When God Calls You to Move. Okay, I just want to welcome y'all. If you did not get to see part one, I encourage you to go take a look at that. And I just want to say, if you are new here, welcome to this series, to my journey. I am really excited about, sharing this testimony, as I say all the time, because I truly am. I was able to, and I know there's many more to come, that I was able to experience God in a way that I thought I would never experience God. So I'm just grateful to share this testimony. And okay, y'all, so in part one, just giving us like a run back, I pretty much, that was God, how I knew God was calling me to move to Chicago. He gave me signs, confirmations, everything. And then in the midst of all of that, when I finally was like, okay, I said yes before, I actually knew I was going to go to Chicago. But then after I'm getting the confirmation, the signs, I'm like, okay, God, when and where, right? What's going on with that? I don't know where I'm going. My lease is about to end, right? So he called me to move in September. My lease was going to end in November. At the end of November. And so it was a lot of confusion for me. It was frustration. It was frustration. I was angry a little bit. I cried a lot. I grew weary almost, right? And so part two, right? Now that God has called me to move to Chicago, and I'm pretty sure of that, I also left off by God also, before he even tells me where I'm going to move exactly in Chicago and when I'm going to move, he calls me to quit my job. And so at this point, I'm like, what? And I gotta be honest, y'all, this is my first time walking in this type of obedience, fully like this. So I am really thrown off, and I'm like, what? Quit my job? But I quit my job being obedient. This was Holy Spirit led. I was just being obedient and didn't even know, without any answers or any of that, and especially as a newbie, right? As a newbie in the faith, I was just I was literally just being obedient. It was just this supernatural faith I had. And so I quit my job. After I quit my job, I do not know where I'm going. And so, you know what? I'm like, okay, well, I'm praying, I'm doing what I feel is necessary, right, to continue to keep myself in communication with God. And I'm just, like I said, as a newbie, I was doing my best on my walk, right? And so I was like, okay, well, I don't know when, I don't know where, but I'm still being obedient. And so as the time is approaching for me to get up out of my apartment, I would just basically book my ticket. I don't have much money because, y'all, I quit and I had my savings. I knew I would get my last check. And all the things, I had a little money to work with. But at the end of the day, it was okay, well, I'm putting all this money into somewhere, I'm gonna need it to stay somewhere, but that's not cheap. And all of the things also, y'all, I had a car, and God called me to give the car up. I gave everything up, y'all. When I say I gave everything up, I gave everything up. So I gave my car up. I did a voluntary repossession. So I gave the car back and all of the things. And so as the time comes, I booked my ticket to go to Chicago. And remind you, y'all, I have 2 children. I am doing this with 2 children. Can you imagine how much I was worrying? Because I was, y'all, I'm gonna admit, I was worrying. I was like, oh my gosh. But God kept leading me back to scripture. And so I'm worrying a little bit, and y'all, it was crazy. I'm like, okay, well, I still trust you. I'm just gonna keep going, even when I'm I felt myself, I was nervous, I was all the things. And I get my ticket, I go with nowhere to go. And here's the thing, now this is where inspiration came in for me, for this, the way I'm telling this testimony, because I also was watching another girl, and I gotta find her YouTube channel to give her a shout out, because I watched her testimony, and she had our testimony is very similar in a way. She didn't have children though, but God called her to move to Texas, and she didn't have anything. She moved out there with nothing. She moved out there with a suitcase, and that's it. She literally got to Texas, and she was just at the airport. She ended up just being at the airport, and she slept at the airport overnight. And God put someone on her heart to call that she knew, and they end up helping her out. And so they got her into an Airbnb. It was really nice, and hopefully I can find her YouTube so I can share that with y'all. But it was that encouraged me, right? That encouraged me to kind of build my faith up a little. And so I go down to Chicago, no place to go. The only person that really, nobody knew about this until the moment I was on my way to Chicago. Like, my mom didn't know until I was on my way to Chicago, literally. And so my mom was like freaking out, and she was not freaking out, but she was like, okay, where are you going? I need to, where you going? And I really didn't feel like it was really, if you have been in this situation where you were moving in such a faith that it's just like, you know God is not telling you to move in secret, but you also know God is asking you to just keep it between you and him. So that's where I was at. Like, it's like I can't, and it's also something you can't really explain to people. So because sometimes, like, it will throw off your faith, it will bring in doubt, and it's just like, it just throws off everything. And so that's what I was afraid of. And I was like, I'm just doing what God told me to do, and I didn't really care to explain way too much to her, because it's honestly, and it's a lot, my mom didn't know about a lot of things that was going on during this time, because I just felt like this was me and God time, and I see why. It's beautiful. But so I go to Chicago, and y'all, I don't have anywhere to go, right? I don't have anywhere to go. I am in Chicago. I don't have nowhere to go. And I'm just like, I remember the girl testimony, I kept remembering it. And I'm like, okay, God is going to make a way. It's going to be like, I'm just going to trust God. But low key, I am freaking out. I don't know what to do. I'm with 2 children, and I have no idea where I'm going. So I am in Chicago, just there. And we end up running into a police officer, and we were just sitting, right? Like, we just sitting down at the station, and she's just like, they was basically about to, like, everybody had to go pretty much, and so she was just like, we were just talking, and then I was just like, I didn't want to even tell her, because I didn't know, it was like, I didn't know how this would look to people. I felt a little crazy. So I was just like, I'm just going to go to a hotel. Like, I'm just do a hotel. I don't see what's, so I end up getting an Uber to the nearest hotel. And when we got there, that wasn't like, I felt like if I'm going to pay to stay somewhere, I'm going to do an Airbnb. I don't like neither one, but it's like, it made sense to do an Airbnb because, like, I didn't really know how the situation was going to go. So I was like, I went to the hotel, and then when I asked them, like, what was the price of that night? Cause I just went to the hotel because the station we was at was about to close, and I didn't really know how to tell anybody about my situation, honestly, y'all. And I don't know. And I still think to this day, was I being disobedient when when I wasn't telling people? I don't know, but I mean, anyway, so I went to the hotel, y'all, and I'm asking the lady, like, how much it is a night, and this lady is like, she's like $150 a night or something like that. And I'm like, no way I'm paying $150 a night, right? Like, I can't do that right now. Like, no way I'm gonna do $150 a night for a hotel, because in a hotel, you gotta order all your food. You can't cook, you can't do anything else. It's very uncomfortable. I just didn't know. So and I'm like, okay, and I have to be very wise about my money. Like, I can't just throw $150 a night away on a hotel. Be for real. So I end up getting an Airbnb. Now, the Airbnb that was perfect, that was a reasonable price. Check-ins are different for Airbnbs. So the Airbnb check-in time, y'all, wasn't until like after 4. It was like 4 a.m. or so. It was a weird time. It was late, y'all, because when we got to Chicago, it was like 8 at night, and so the lady, she was kind as heck. Like, she was really kind. I was like, I'm just trying to figure out exactly where we're gonna go right now. Right, I'm not gonna get a room with y'all, but I need to figure it out. Can I please sit in the lobby for right now? And so she literally let us sit in the lobby until we figured everything out. So I ended up hitting the host up of the Airbnb, and I was pretty much just waiting for them to respond. It was late, so I was expecting like a delay. So I wasn't expecting them to get right back. And they ended up hitting us back like, hey, are you still interested? You know, I'm like, yes. I paid my fee, y'all. It was cheap. It was way more. I got a lot more out of that Airbnb than I would have ever got from the hotel. So it was a nice, cool price, very comfortable, very welcoming. And yeah, we even was chatting, like it was really cool. And so y'all, basically I went there, and now I'm like, okay, God, I got this Airbnb. That's a lot of my money that just was, taken away. Where am I going? What is going on, guys? So I'm journaling every day, y'all. I'm journaling. I'm crying. My kids are having a ball, though. My kids are having a ball. I'm not gonna lie. The area that we were in was very nice. We were close to everything. We was by Target, Aldi's, every store you can imagine. Like we was there by it. So it made it amazing for us to get and then we had a kitchen and everything. So I went, got food, and was cooking. It was way better than buying out and stuff like that. So I'm there at the Airbnb, and I'm like, I'm on day 4 at the Airbnb, and I'm like, okay, God, what's going on? Because we're gonna have to leave. I think I did like a week, almost not a week, 5 days. So we're gonna be leaving. And so I'm like, God, what is going on? I'm crying so much. I was crying the whole entire time there, y'all. But it was a beautiful thing at the same, like I was enjoying my time there because I was there. My kids were so happy, and but I'm still like, God, I got these kids and I don't know where I just gave a whole apartment up. I'm like going through it. And another thing about my apartment, like here's the thing. When I put in my notice to vacate from my apartment, they told me that I didn't even realize it. I needed, of course you have to do this you have to put a 60-day notice in. And so when I put my notice in, because at first I didn't know I was originally planning to stay, but that didn't happen. And so when I put my notice in, she was like, you got 60 days, which actually gave me to January to leave. But I was like, I can't even, I was so frustrated. I think, and this plays a major part in this testimony, because I was doing things that I was being obedient at the same time, but I also was just like, I feel like it's hard because I was like I feel like I was moving in my own strength. So even though I was following what God told me to do, I was also trying to do that thing in my own strength, which led me to unnecessary trials. It really did. It led to unnecessary trials, and that's a big part of this testimony, right? You want to be, when God calls you to act in big faith, you can't get to what he's called you to do in your own strength. You can't do it. And when God calls you to be faithful, he's calling you to be specifically, every step of the way guided by him. He wants you to do exactly, when he gives you a word, he wants you to move to him exactly as he said do. Just like when he told me to get rid of everything and I decided to still keep a little bit of my fashion design stuff, that was me that's partial obedience. And then it's also not that. Real faith is you doing exactly what God said to do, exactly how he said to do it. That is real faith. And so when we don't follow that, we end up in unnecessary trials. We do. And that's what happened in this testimony. And so that's what happened. Anyway, so we're going back. So yeah, I actually had to January, right? But it's all going to make sense as I keep going. And so basically as the Airbnb is about to end, I'm calling all these places. I'm trying to get my kids in daycare so I can start working. Just all of this frustration, it was it was basically because of me. It wasn't because of God. It was because of me not doing what God said exactly how he said it. Because in my mind, I also was in reality, I was comparing myself to the girl that I had seen in this same situation. I was comparing myself to her, okay, God did that for her, he's going to do the same exact thing for me. And that's where I went wrong too, because I saw that, okay, this is similar to me. I started to compare myself to it too much, and then to a point where it was I need God to move exactly like that for me. And this is where we mess up a lot in our faith. We think when we get encouraged by somebody else's faith, we also start to sometimes in some way compare ourselves to them. And it's like, okay, he's going to move that way for me. And when he doesn't do that exact thing, it seems like he's not going to come through. And that's what it was for me. And again, I have put myself in an unnecessary situation. So, so I'm just hearing nothing. So anyway, going to Chicago, you have to pass St. Louis. In St. Louis, my mom is there. So I'm like, well, you know what? I'm just gonna go to my mom's house, because at this point, even though I had 60 days to necessarily vacate, I've already, like, in my mind, I'm like, I've already vacated the apartment, and blah blah blah. It's gonna vacate. I still gotta end the lease, because even though they gave me to January, I still gotta end the lease. All these things, and I'm actually also thinking God wants me to go now. Like, it was just like a lot. And I learned a lot. There was no failure in any of this. I learned a lot. And so that's what I ended up doing. I went to my mom's house because, okay, the Airbnb is about to end. I am low-key pissed. I'm crying. I was literally having so many breakdowns. I'm like, I cannot believe, did I hear God wrong? Why is this happening? God, why would you tell me to come here and then not have nowhere for me to go? What is going on, God? I'm literally, I'm talking to God just like this. And I'm like, God, I am crying every day. So when we finally, we left the Airbnb and we went back to my mom's house, I felt so foolish and stupid, because I'm like, I thought God told me to come to Chicago. This is what I thought you told me to do. What is up right now? What? And it got to a point like, God, you even had me quit my job. Why is this happening? And it was literally because I had never went through this. And what I did not realize at that time, that was the beginning of pruning. Y'all, now I'm looking back on this, and it was like that. At the time, it felt crappy, but now that I'm looking back on this, it was like God breaking me down. God, I'm really trying not to cry. It was God breaking me down. Like it was part of his plan. Even though I had moved foolishly, even though I feel like I moved in a way where it caused me to be in an unnecessary trial, but God already knew I was going to do that. And he used it. It was part of y'all. And so even feeling stupid and foolish, now that I'm going back, I'm still not knowing what's going to happen next. But you know what, y'all? I still had faith. I was like, no, this ain't it. I was feeling this way, but I was like, no, I kept saying, God, I said, I'm going to testify. I'm going to testify. And you know what? It was still, this is that girl that I told y'all about. I really need to find out her I think it's Dejanay or something. Not Dejanay, that's literally not her name, but it started with a D. And I kept thinking about her story too. It was just like that was like building my faith, because she kind of went through the same thing where she had to spend a night at the airport. She didn't know where she was going to go. And it's like, okay, so I thought about that, and I was like, you know what, God, I'm going to testify. This is not it. I'm going to testify. And it's like I kept being anchored back into the Abraham story. Like you had Abraham do something that you didn't really want him to do. Like I kept thinking, okay, God, did you want me to do it just to see if I would do it, if I would be faithful, if I would be obedient? Was this just a test for that? And it was like, and even if it was, I trust you to restore me. I had that. I had the faith of a mustard seed for sure. I was angry. I was frustrated. I was all the things, but I still had the faith of a mustard seed. And so, and that's really what it is all about. And so I didn't realize though that I was actually about to start a pruning season. This was like, and most people, I will say this was my Job season too, for sure. Yes, it was definitely my Job season, and I'm actually going to get to that in part 3, because that's where we talk about, okay, what had happened after I moved to my mom's house. Like I had to go back to my mom's house. What happened after that? But God is such a good God. Y'all will not believe what happened after that. And it was yeah, God is a good God. And so that is it, y'all. That is it. I'm really excited, like I said, to share this testimony. And I just want to say, if you are in the middle of being called to move, be obedient. Please be fully obedient and do what God wants you to do the way he wants you to do it. And guess what? You didn't hurt God wrong. It may feel like you are insane. It may feel like you are crazy. You may feel foolish, stupid. Like, God, why would you even call me to do something like this when you know my circumstances don't match? That's how you know it's God. That's how, because it's going to require you to be fully dependent on him. And when I say full, I'm not talking about halfway dependent. You're going to have to depend on God with every inch of your soul. That's how you know that God is calling you to do something. It's no way you can do it. It was no way that I did. It's no way I did any of the things, anything that happened. Like, I had to, when I say y'all, I had to keep going to God. It was no way I was able to get through the trial and tribulations without God at all. I needed God so much, y'all. And so I really hope this encourages you. Keep going to him, keep seeking him. You did not hear him wrong. And what he said he will do, he will do. All right. So I'll see y'all in part 3. Bye.